In this video, I'll be working some extra problems where we're subtracting numbers that do not have base 10. As with all my extra problem videos, watch the first one and then I want you to pause the video between each one, work it on your own, and then double check to see if you did it correctly. You can stop at any time whenever you feel confident that you can do these problems by yourself. So with this very first one, 312 minus 243, I need to take 3 away from 2, which I can't do. So I need to borrow from the 1. Now notice I'm in base 5, so I'm not going to add 10 to the 2. Instead, I'm going to add 5. So 5 plus 2 is going to give me 7. So now I can subtract. 7 minus 3 gives me 4. Now I need to take 4 away from nothing. Well, once again, I can't do that. So I need to borrow from my 3. So I'll get a 2 up there. And then notice I get a 5 because I'm adding 0 plus 5, not in 10 because we're in base 5. So now that's 5 minus 4, which gives me 1. And then finally, 2 minus 2, well, that's just 0. So my answer is going to be 14 base 5. Now look at number 2. It is in base 2. So I can actually do some of this subtraction. 0 minus 0, well, that's just 0. 1 minus 1, well, that's just 0 as well. But now I can't say 0 minus 1, so I have to borrow. So I'm going to borrow from that 1. And then what number am I going to put above the 0? I'm going to change that 0. I'm going to add 2 because I'm in base 2. So 2 minus 1 gives me 1. So my answer is just going to be 100 base 2. Now let's do base 12. Notice in base 12, we've got some numbers we may not recognize before, some digits, a T and an E. Remember, the E means 11. So I need to take 11 away from 8, which I can't do. So I'm going to borrow from the T. Now remember, the T means 10. So when I borrow, I'm going to have 9 left over. And then when I add, I'm going to add 12 to that 8, and that's how I get 20. So 20 minus 11, that's going to give me 9. 9 minus 9, I can do that. That's a 0. And then 3 minus 2 gives me 1. So my answer is 109 base 12. Let's keep going. Number 4. This time we're in base 8. Again, I cannot take a 4 away from the 1, so I'm going to have to borrow. When I borrow from the 3, that'll give me a 2 up there. Now, what am I going to add to that 1? Right, I'm going to add an 8. So it gives me 9. So 9 minus 4 will give me 5. Now 2 minus 7, again, I can't do that, so I'm going to borrow from my 6 and get a 5. Now I'm going to add that 8 with the 2. So I get a 10 up there. So 10 minus 7 will give me a 3. And then I can take 2 away from 5. So 5 minus 2 gives me a 3 as well. So my answer is 335 base 8. Now let's look at number 5. I'm subtracting in base 9. So 8 minus 5, I can do that. That's going to give me 5. Then I can't take 6 away from my 4, so I'm going to have to borrow from the 6, and I'll get 5 there. Now what do I add to my 4? Since I'm in base 9, I'll add 9 to 4 and get 13. So 13 minus 6 is going to give me 7, and then I can take 2 away from 5. So I get 375 base 9. The final one, I cannot take 6 away from 4. So again, I have to borrow, but again, I'm borrowing in base 7, so I'm going to add 7 to the 11 and get, 7 to the 4 and get 11. So 11 minus 6 gives me 5, and then 4 minus 5, I can't do that. So I've got to borrow from the 6. Now what do I add to that 4 up there? I'm going to add the 7, right? So 7 plus 4 gives me 11. So 11 minus 5 will give me my 6, and now I can subtract 5 minus 4 to get 1. So my answer should be 165 base 7.